Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell Dev stream, the live stream series where we continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platform mechanics and multiple endings. And if you want to watch these dev streams on your own time, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and boop that bell button to stay notified. Now, you might be wondering what I'm doing here on the main menu frame, because you might be saying, hey Antomicx, didn't you have some work to do on the main menu frame last dev stream? And we did! But I've also been working quite a bit off stream, so you'll notice, chat, if I pull open the application, not only do I have some new dialogue here. Right now you're actually seeing the game in its quote-unquote full screen mode. So the actual dialogue boxes here now have their new custom text. But more importantly, boom! All of the save files now use a new custom font. Thanks, courtesy of the text blur object. And mind you, this took a while to do, because I basically had to basically replace all my code for the original string objects to work with the text blur objects, and then actually get the fonts to work. It was quite a bit. But suffice it to say, that's all working smoothly. So it lists out the various levels, the different players earned abbreviated in sorts. I will also mention, chat, that there is a quit button now, but only in the main menu. I still have to add the one in the game proper. But you'll notice that there's a button down here on the bottom right that says exit game. If I press that, it just exits the game perfectly. So at least we're starting to move in the right direction there. The other new thing is that I managed to get the new dialogue working in the opening cutscene. So let's just pick a save file that doesn't have any information on it, and you'll notice that once again, yep, there's the new fonts right there for everything. Hello, Jay. Thanks for dropping by. How's it doing? What does GAME stand for? Good allegory of mental agony. I mean, to be fair, agony does not start with an E, but I'll leave you all to learn what that might stand for during the full game. But yeah, we got all the new fonts. Those are all looking good. This is the agony. That's amazing. Agony. All right, but since that actually makes me think back to the Hat in Time challenge run when we had the whole there was that giant egg on top of Neoxys and Metro that you walk up to, and Hat Kid just says egg, and you get an achievement for that. That's something I remember when you brought that up, Jay. But yeah, they're making good progress off stream. So essentially the implementation of this new custom text blur fonts with all of this stuff has been done on the main menu and the opening cutscene, which just leaves us with the test frame and the 3 frames of Bardolph to implement that. But, and this is key, chat, there is another source of numbers that needs to be adjusted, and that's actually up here in the top left corner. So obviously you'll notice, well, first of all, we didn't zoom in because I didn't start from the beginning of the game. If we did, it would be in its quote-unquote full screen mode. But essentially, this is the old fonts. It doesn't look that bad this size, but if I were to zoom that in, it would look very odd. But I'm actually going to draw our attention over here to the top left. So the healing charge counter uses some of the default fonts, and again, those look kind of weird. So we're going to make some adjustments to that, but not in the way that we normally do. So instead of using a text splitter object, I'm actually going to see if we can just take the healing charge counter and convert it into, let's see, a different display type. So I believe if it is changed to numbers, we can actually, okay, here we go. We can actually edit what the font looks like. So let's see here. If I run this frame, well, it's very bizarre because it is quite large, but we switch back over to text. Okay, we need to make it like that. So in order to make it exactly like that, since we're at a one-to-one zoom in here, let's go over to this. I've essentially just copied over a print screen tap. I'll just be grabbing that 0 and using it to create our little custom font. Just keep on keeping on. And go from there. Perfect. All right. So let's see here. That's our 0. As you can see, when we really zoom in, it still doesn't look. It's still having that same shading effect that we don't want in the fits. Also, hello, Copper Nicholson. Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Let's close that off real quick. Let me just check something real quick, chat. Be right back. Okay. Yeah, I can make that work. All right. Oh, what's this? A game developer trying to show off his hard work? Not on your watch. Well, I disagree, Copper Nicholson. I'm going to continue to work on Heartwell for a decent chunk of the night. But you're welcome to share your thoughts as well, Copper Nicholson. So, we just need to get a font open. Let's try font size 12. Move that bold. Right now I'm just trying to get the size right. Font shift is clearly not the way to go. Also, reading messages hacked it. Okay, what font is this? Adobe UI semi-bold. Supposedly. Whoa. Oh, I haven't changed the font size, so I was confused. Alright. Let's see if we can work with that. Alright, the read message just hacked it. You got it. You got the power, yeah? After all is said and done, you never walk, you never run, you're a winner. You got the moves, you know the streets, break the rules, take the heat, you're no one's fool. You're at your best when and going gets rough. You've been put to the test, but it's never enough. You got the heart, you got the motion. You know when things get too tough, you've got the right stuff. And that's the other thing we could do is just try to essentially hand draw this. So... 25. And that is a 0. Okay, there we go. There's a 0, and that's the rough scale we need. So knowing that, now we propagate. So a 1's gonna look like probably something like that. Actually, what does our 1's look like? Okay, it's just a little thing like that. Just trying to see what looks reasonable. Yeah, I think that looks alright. Let's see here. What is a surprisingly complicated number? I know, right? There's so many things about the number 1 that make it unique. Besides just the way it looks, it's the fact that you multiply it by anything and it's still it remains the same. Whereas you multiply anything by 0, you get 0. Okay. Now let's see, let's start ourselves at 2. Will that work? Not quite what I want. If we do something like that. Okay. There's a 2. We don't want to overdo it up top, that's the thing. We're just gonna do something like that. Yeah, I think that'll work. There's a 2. I saw the meme message, right? Yep, I read the meme message, Chopper Nicholson. Alrighty, now we need a 3. So a 3 is a lot like a 2. It's just you need to turn the thinking around. Just add a little bit more there in the center. And boom, 3. What's the max healing charges Dorothy can get? Great question, Jay. So, let's see here. So I know by the end of the demo you can have 4, if I'm remembering correctly. But in terms of like the full game, let's see, there's a couple of regions. I want to say 20, but that is going to depend on where I guess it depends on how I want to area scale thing. And you might say, why 20? That seems like a lot. Well, that's because in Dark Souls 1, 20 was the maximum number of Estus flasks you could get. But the reason why I'm a bit hesitant there is because the healing charge, by its very nature, is it doesn't heal as much as an Estus flask does in Dark Souls, but at least not at the start of the game. But to be fair, a healing charge is also a lot faster to use than a healing flask is in Dark Souls. Like in Dark Souls, if you use an Estus flask, it takes you like 2 to 3 seconds, whereas a healing charge is like maybe 1 second. So there's kind of pros and cons to it, but right now I would say 20, though that number is subject to change. That answer your question, Jay? Whose voice is best suited for rock and roll? I guess that depends. Like what kind of rock and roll? Let's see, now we need a 4. Let's make a 4. Grab that. Alright, there's our 4. We're essentially just drawing analog numbers here. Let's see, rock and roll voices. I'd probably say Sonic, since Sonic's always doing rock and roll stuff. Yeah. So Jay, if you're asking about the Matt's healing charges, are you trying to figure out like just how much healing can be done, or just trying to plan ahead for how to optimize any potential build? As I know, whenever could there be some kind of upgrade that enables charges to replenish ammo /stamina, or is that relegated to only passive regen? Great question. So, it's funny you mentioned that. So, there are actually specials on some of the weapons that I've already got planned. And bear in mind, I still have a lot of specials to write in, because when you have 4 specials for 60 different weapons, that adds up a lot. But I will say there are already plans for some of the specials to actually directly impact your stamina or ammo in positive ways. And one example of that is actually the scythe. So the scythe is going to have a special that for right now I'm calling Harvest, but I might change the name of it. But the premise is that when you deal damage with the scythe and you have that special active, you recover a certain amount of ammo. And now whether that amount recovered is going to scale with a particular stat or something, I'm not sure yet, but I do know that is like an idea I have, and that's just one example. So I think it's safe to say that there will be, for some weapons, there may be like a special that allows ammo or stamina to be recovered in ways beyond just waiting. Now, whether there's a special that allows the charges to replenish ammo or stamina, or whether that's some kind of upgrade, that's something I can't really comment on until I have a better sense of how all the specials balance against one another and whether or not I want that to be an upgrade. But rest assured, that is an idea that at least is on my mind, is different ways for the player to get stamina and ammo back beyond just waiting. So I don't know if that really I don't know if that necessarily answered your question, Jay, like whether that specific idea would happen, but there will be other potential ideas, other ways potentially to get more stamina and ammo back beyond just waiting. Idea: really strong melee that fully cancel natural ammo regen, only charging on damage dealt. Oh, okay. You know, that's an interesting idea. That is a really interesting idea. Like a really strong melee weapon that just gets rid of natural ammo regen. I think that's really interesting. I'll have to write that one down. That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, that's true. You're right, Tabernacle. I do need to remessage just Apollo. So 1 second. You never bend, you never break. You seem to know just what it takes. You're a fighter in the blood, and it's in the will. It's the mighty hands of steel. When you're standing your ground and you never give in, when you're back to the wall, gonna fight till the end, and you're taking it all. You got the touch, you got the power. When all heads breaking loose, you'll be right in the eye of the storm. You got the heart, you got the motion. You know that when things get too tough, you got the touch. Windshield Grass said, "What are you talking about?" I'm just reading a message I saw on the internet. That figures. All right, but seriously, I'll write that down. That's a really interesting idea. Like I love weapons in video games that have unique drawbacks, but also really strong pros. So it's like you get this really awesome thing, but you also have to work around this very unique thing. So let's see here. I'll just make a little section here that says stream suggestions. Suggestion from Jay. A strong melee weapon that fully cancels natural ammo regen and only recharges ammo based on the damage dealt. Alrighty. Setbacks are always great as options, especially if they buff other areas. Oh, I agree. I 100% agree. Like, I mean, even the demo has a prime example of that, and that being the fists. Because if you think about the fists as a melee weapon, they're clearly meant to be very weak. I mean, you're literally using your bare hands. Of course, it's going to be weak. But because of that, I would argue the fists have a very, have a bunch of fairly strong passives. In particular, I think it's called Gifted Hands. And that's a passive that lets the player... that's a passive that increases the player's ammo regen rates, as well as the player's the amount of health recovered from healing charges, and it has no drawbacks. Except, the one drawback is obviously having to use the fist as a melee weapon. So it's like you're sacrificing the melee, but the potential damage of the stronger melee weapons, but in return you're gaining a very powerful potential passive ability if you're trying to focus on more of a ranged build, or even just having better healing. Also, read a message as Shadow the Hedgehog. Mischief Night is an informal holiday which involves lots of pranks. It is known by a variety of names, but the earliest use of the phrase comes from 1790, when headmaster encouraged Mischief Night. This heard by someone by the name of Puritan Philip Stubbs, and he decries it every day as May Day Eve, as early as 1583. Yeah, speaking of Shadow the Hedgehog, who here has played Sonic Shadow Generation? Says I heard it was a pretty good game. Let's see here. Do it there, do anything like that. I like the other way there. Analog. Okay. So at this point, chat, we're basically making custom numbers that look like an analog clock. So like if you've ever seen an analog clock and it has like all these digital numbers, it's kind of a similar premise here. But yeah. And now I'll just add the 9, and then we'll see if we can get that imported as our new custom text. All right, let's give it a shot, chat. All right, so not sure if I remember if I asked this question before, chat, but for those who have gotten far enough in the demo to know that there are multiple exits to the tutorial dungeon, my question to you, chat, is when the full game comes out, which exits do you want to go to first and why? Is it the exit that's near the 2 bosses? Is it the one behind the wooden barricade? Or is it the one that's at like the very top of the well? Since for those who have beaten the Skull Splitter boss fight, you'll know that each of those exits go to a completely different location. And that was a deliberate design choice. All right, we need to change this to numbers. All right, so how big are these? Frame is 5 by 9. We'll go 6 by 9. All right. Man, that is hard to see, but I'll trust that it's there. Okay, it's there. Let's set the background to black just so we can see these more. There we go. All right. Okay. Read a message as Alyssa. My Little Pony Transformers is the name of the American Limited comic book series by IDW Publishing and read by Milliam Orion. It represents a crossover between the Hasbro brands. Not that I know what those are. When Queen Chrysalis casts a spell looking for more changelings, she accidentally interferes with the malfunctioned Cybertronian space bridge, transforming both the Autobots and Decepticons into Equestria. If you understood what any of that means, good for you, because I don't follow this series. The series spans 4 issues, each one containing 2 different stories. A sequel miniseries, The Magic of Cybertron, was released in 2021. How do I know this? Because Milliam will not stop talking about it. Alright, next up we got the 3. So Milliam would canonically be a fan of MLP or Transformers. The answer is yes. Have you seen Milliam? Milliam is an agent of chaos. I mean, she walks around with Lammy, which is a robot, so I'm sure she'd like a robot show. And we must not forget that the Milliam likes things that are adorable, but also things that are chaos, and MLP falls into both. Milliam and Pinkie Pie are canonically the same person. No, unless Pinkie Pie's voice actress is Ashley Birch. The answer to that is no. Now you can argue that Milliam Orion and Molly McGee are the same person. I mean, there's literally a couple episodes where Molly McGee wears like a blue wig and calls herself Miley, which is spelled Millie. Which is getting very, very close to Milliam. I do not believe that is true, Copper Nicholson. Let's see here. Throw that on in there. But yeah, like I was asking, Chad, if you when the full game of Heartwell's out, which exit to the tutorial dungeon do you think you'll take and why? Yeah, for me personally, being the challenge runner, I would probably take the exit behind the wooden barricade, but that I would not recommend that for anyone who's playing the game for the first time, since that's intended to be the hardest of the 3 areas. But I'm the type of person who in Elden Ring will always just go to Caelid first because it has good items, even if it is a much harder area than the starting area. All right. Okay. Okay. So I see the number up there. It looks good. The positioning's just off. So we'll have to make that adjustment. Let's zoom in a bit. A bit more. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10. One, two. Alrighty. Do I have a... I'm trying to remember if I have a save file that has a bit more than just one. I probably do. Let's take a look, chat. Oh, before I forget, let's turn off background music just for a second. All right. Pull up file. Okay. Omicron. Did I just reload? Did I not? Okay, so I might have reset this particular one. Let's try a different one. Oh, really? Okay, then I guess I was just unaware of that. Let's see here. Let's try this one. Okay, there we go. Now I can see the number a bit better. Okay. I think it needs more space, honestly. Like, if we gave every frame just like one more pixel to work with, I think it will look pretty good. All right, let's do that. So we'll just give it a width of 7. 7. 7. Read a message as William. Oh no! The Milliam has arrived. Spike introduces his fellow dragon Smolder to the Dinobots. Since his first adventure with Grimlock, the little dragon has become their #1 fan and obsessively researched everything he can to learn about the prehistoric Dinobots. While Smolder's confident, its strong wings and scorching fire breath wow the Dinobots, Spike struggles to impress the group despite Grimlock's attempts to help him. As he bashfully points out, he's still just learning how to fly and only uses magical fire to send messages. Yay! All right, let's try that. Okay, now I just need to move it 1 to the left and we'll be good to go here. Alrighty. Yep. All right, chat, I think we got ourselves a nice little counter there, so let's just take a look at how it looks. And there's a part of me that almost wants to remove the inner parts of the zeros, so they do look a little odd compared to the other ones. Yeah, let's adjust that. Also, a remessage just Smolder gives Spike a lift as the pair zip through the air, dodging the combiner as they taunt each other of superior and individual components and do their best as to pull the combiner apart by reminding each individual Autobot. of who they really are. When faced with one mind pulling in 5 separate directions, Sombros magic weakens. When Superion eventually collapses and falls apart as individual Arbok components, the spell is fully lifted, and the aerial bots return to their old selves. And that is how Erebonia was born. Now let's run the frame. Let's see how things look. Okay. What do you think, chat? Do you like the 0 like that or the way it was before? I mean, I kind of liked it because it's kind of minimalist. I just going minimalist on something like this actually kind of works. That's that now makes the 1 look weird. And that's how Erebonia was born as an MLP reference. Okay. Well. Let's adjust the 1. Alright, have fun at work. Okay. Okay, I think the 1 works. I actually just want to move it to the side a bit, so it's a little more center. Alright. I know I'm making such a minor adjustments, chat, but you have to realize people will be looking at this number for a good chunk of the game, you know, for most of the game, so you want it to look as good as you can. Does that look good? Am I overthinking this, chat? Or did it look better before, or does it look better now? I guess the 1 should be centered on that dot. Make it all make sense. And that's why it looks weird, because it's not centered on the dot. Or not truly centered on the dot. Okay, let's revert. Alrighty, well there's the 1, there's the 0. Cover those. Yep. Looking good. Alright. That makes the next task essentially to do the same thing in the other frames. Cue the montage music. Also, I think Jay mentioned a different and specific idea. All right. Let's see here. All right. See here, if I go into edit, can I just, yeah, I can copy all the frames. Oh, right. It's one of those. Well. This should take a little bit longer. I'll need to change it all to 7:9. There's a more efficient way to do this, chat, let me know, but for now, it's looking like what we'll have to do. Seven, 9, 7, 9. Now, for those who are wondering, why don't I just copy over the actual object itself? That's because that would require reprogramming, and that would take a long time. First, even though this is on the more tedious side, at least it will allow us to avoid reprogramming. Oh, wait. Wait. There we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, one thing I have found, chat, is that as I've begun to focus much more on Heartwell's development in in my free time, it's actually become easier to develop, and that might sound a bit odd, but bear with me, chat. So essentially what I've done is I've restructured my schedule outside of work to essentially make sure that I'm generally aiming for about a minimum of 8 hours of work on Heartwell per week, and that equates to about 1 hour a day on weekdays and 2 hours a day on the weekends, excluding Fridays. And the result is it's kind of reoriented my mind into a way where it's like I have an almost continuous stream of consciousness from one day to the next in terms of where Heartwell is, and it's really fascinating, and to see how how the human brain can work in such a way to make things become be more streamlined towards a particular goal if you're working on it every single day, sort of thing. So if you're a developer out there and you're feeling a bit burnt out on a game and you feel like you don't have time for it, my suggestion would be to try and reorient yourself to a point where you can essentially work a little bit each day, and that can really help you focus. Like even a few days ago, I finished work, I was exhausted, but despite being exhausted, I still felt myself naturally gravitating towards just working on Heartwell. And I think that was a good thing, because it's like, this is definitely what my passion is. And it feels really good to be able to feel that drive even when I'm feeling tired. If that makes sense, chat. Yeah, I mean, even now, I'm excited by doing something even as mundane as this, because I know when I figure out all the more mundane stuff, I'd have to do the more exciting things, like weapon balance and level design. In fact, in regards to level design, chat, I've been making some good progress off stream with my level design for stuff beyond the demo, because I've started essentially writing my ideas down on like a physical book as opposed to typing them out. So essentially I have like a book of graphing paper and a pencil, and then just whenever I want to have time to just have fun, my version of having fun is where I play a fairly laid-back game of Dark Souls 2 for a little bit, and then I swap to opening up my book and writing out a level design idea. It's very relaxing, but it's also been it's kind of interesting, because like I'm wiring my brain around the idea of level design being associated with another laid-back activity, and the result is oh, hey Jay, welcome back. So right now we're in the process of transferring over all the numbers for the new healing charge counter. So it kind of looks like this. I'll just really quickly pull it on up. So that's what the new healing charge counter looks like up there in the top left. So now it's all custom text and stuff. I was also commenting about how I've been able to essentially restructure my time outside of work to work on Heartwell a little bit each day. Usually for about an hour or two, depending on what the day is. And it's really helped to make things go a lot more smoothly in terms of efficiently developing things, because it's kind of almost like having a stream of consciousness constantly. I've also, whenever I'm just having fun playing a game, I alternate between doing that and opening a book with a graphing paper to come up with different ideas for level sections for Heartwell. And that's actually resulted in me already having enough level sections for one of the areas in Caria Forest. So that's been a process. So literally I have over, yeah, I think I have about 20 or a little over 20 new sections that I've drawn over the course of the past couple of weeks. Just again, just in my quote unquote fun time, not sitting down actively working on it. It's like passive, working like that slowly over time will really add up over it all. Because by my estimations, I think I need well over 200 different sections for the full game of Heartwell. And when I say sections, I mean like the little sections I've shown in tile maps, where it's like, oh, this is a section with a rattlesnake, or this is a section with a rattle and a rattlesnake. Those little things like that. So like for the full game, I think it's like 280 or something is like the bare minimum I need to aim for. So, and bear in mind, a section is not a dungeon. A section is just like a tiny room in a dungeon. So it's like those many rooms are what ultimately make up an area. So, what does that look like? So like, for example, if I were here in Heartwell, in terms of how structuring works, like this little room right here with this rattlesnake would be considered one section, because it would be a predefined area that I then layer into the dungeon. Similarly, this little hallway here with the cabrattle, that's a section. This spot here with the cabrattle on a platform, that's a section. Think of represent traditional Zelda's dungeon. Exactly. So for the way I've defined Heartwell's scope, I think it's somewhere around 280. That's the bare minimum for me to create in order to essentially create my vision. Now I can always add more. But I can't have any less than that for it to feel like a proper sense of progression, at least in my opinion. Because that's kind of the rule set I followed for Heartwell, and I think it worked out quite well because Well, in my eyes, feels quite vast for a tutorial dungeon, but definitely without feeling overwhelming. But it's just that same principle. And what's honestly made coming up with sections in like the areas after Well even easier than Well itself is because Well, I only have the enemy types to work with. I don't have like unique gameplay mechanics to work with beyond basic platforming here. But like in the future areas, what I try to do, you don't have any roads between dungeons? Hey, great question. So yes, in a sense. So Jay, have you played Dark Souls 1 perchance? Or do you at least know about Firelink Shrine? Now you might be saying, why am I bringing up Firelink Shrine? So in Dark Souls 1, because Dark Souls 1 heavily followed Metroidvania level design principles, Firelink Shrine actually connects to like 6 or 7 different unique dungeons. There's like pathways to 6 or 7 different unique dungeons from that one point. Now bear in mind, some of those pathways, you've only played about 20% of Dark Souls 1. Alright, but you've at least gotten to Firelink Shrine, right? You know, the point where it's like, okay, you have this choice. Do you go up the stairs to the undead sentinel the undead birds? Do you go down the stairs into like towards New Londo Ruins? Do you go into the graveyard towards the catacombs? You know, that kind of thing. There's some paths that are open from the start and some paths that are blocked off that you can unlock later. And essentially, with Heartwell, I wanted to recapture that sort of feeling of these central hubs that you come back to as you unlock shortcuts. But not just in the sense of having one point where everything connects back to. Instead, I want you to imagine if there were 3 Firelink Shrines. Alright? So, for Heartwell, remember how I said there are 3 exits to the tutorial dungeon? Well, when you exit into whichever third of the map that you choose, that third of the map, you start at whatever the central point is of that third of the map. And that's your starting point. And you essentially have 2 paths at that point. You know, one path leads to one dungeon, the other path leads to a different dungeon. But eventually, there will be shortcuts that allow you to start further in those dungeons, or even potentially, skip significant chunks to get more easily to the next interconnecting point between 2 different dungeons. So I'd really have to draw a picture to make it make a lot more sense, but that's the simplest way I can describe it. There will very much be a lot of not just shortcuts within dungeons, but even just shortcuts back to a central hub point for a particular region. And that'll provide that more interconnected feel while also helping with navigation, given the fact that at least as of right now, I don't have any plans for a fast travel system. So much like Dark Souls, the first half of Dark Souls 1, you have to get used to actually traversing the map. So shortcuts that are unlockable will be a nice way to reward the player for taking the initiative to explore everything. Let's take a look here to see if... oh, right. Needs to get the location right. That's at 1747. I need... $1835. Okay. Yeah. And of course, once you get far enough into the game and unlock things, you could potentially find ways back into Well so that you can go to the other regions of the game, or even past the connects between the regions. But that's obviously all stuff for later. Lots of mapping to be done there, but the underlying principle of that interconnectivity is still there. All right, let's try that. Aha! There we go. Do I remember how much health the 2 demo bosses have? Well, the short answer is I don't need to remember because I can literally look that up. So let's see, how much health did I give Stealth Splitter here? Let's see here. Alright, well currently Stealth Splitter has 650 health. And Madsmith has 500 health. However, I will note that those numbers are very much subject to change after I finish implementing like the buffs to stamina regen and the increased XP gain rates for all the enemies in Heartwell. Like once I do that stuff, I'll probably end up giving them both a bit more health. But the main thing I want to change with them, besides a little bit more health, is obviously just the additions of their second phases. Now, I'm not going to do anything too over the top, because these are still tutorial bosses. I don't want them to just completely demolish everyone. But I definitely want to make them have a little bit more thought put into them than what they currently have, since if one's able to level up a bit higher, where they are at right now would just be too easy and wouldn't really teach the lessons I'm trying to teach the player as tutorial bosses. So the additions of the second phases should reinforce some of the lessons I'm hoping to impart on the player that will serve them well for the rest of the game, as any good tutorial boss should. Alright, now we change this one to numbers. Yeah. I also really like this song, chat. This is a song that I definitely like to listen to when I'm developing. I think it's called Erosion by Drummer Boy. Love the sense of movement it provides. Much like a rising sun. Alright. Alrighty. Cool. All right. Now let's bring in the new fonts. Yeah. So for context about how much health the two demo bosses currently have, a rattlesnake has 50 health. So, comparatively speaking, Madsmith has 10 times the amount of health, at least at this current point in time, compared to a rattlesnake, and Stealth Splitter has 13 times the amount of health compared to a normal rattlesnake. But again, that's it, at least at this point in time. Probably going to increase that a little bit. Well, like I said, probably going to increase that a little bit to counteract, as part of the counterbalancing to the increased rate of burning XP for the enemies. Does the XP gain that appears when defeating an enemy need its font change too? That's a good question. Let's there actually is a way for us to test it out real quick, chat. So what we're gonna do, because I didn't want to make edits to that until I see how it looks in quote-unquote full screen mode. So let's do that right now. All right, we're here. This is quote-unquote full screen mode. We have ourselves a nice little rattlesnake. Pay close attention to the area near the one, chat, where we'll see the XP pop up. So I think it's all right. I mean, it's around the same size as what the damage counters are for the for the when we're attacking the rattlesnake, so I wouldn't want it to be any smaller, of course, but it's still there. Yep, there's the plus 51. And it's plus 51 because I have a decent amount of wisdom at this point. Wisdom level 6. Destroy a rattle. It's plus 90. Yeah. Sorry for the somewhat destroying questions. You have some weird run plans for the demo eventually full game. No, that's perfectly fine, Jay. I welcome these questions, and I'd be curious to see what, as you put it, weird run plans you have, because I always like to do fun challenge runs. And these are the kinds of things that can definitely impact that. Like, I ask the same kinds of questions whenever I'm like, okay, this game has this set of rules. Can I do this? You know? But yeah, so what do you guys think? Do you guys think the font's a good size, or do you think I should bump it up just a smidge? I mean, personally, I know in the Souls games, the fonts for XP earned, or I guess runes or souls earned, is not that large. It's, oh, right, this is where character is. That's good. Okay, yep, that was my thought too. It's like, I think that, like, if the font size for the normal enemies is of a good size already, then I was about to say, if I hit the vibrato with that, I would have been so happy. That would have been like the attack of the century. Okay. I hit something. 100. Okay, that looks like that all worked out. Alright. Back to development. But yeah, what kind of challenge runs, or I guess what kind of run ideas did you have in mind, Jay? Let's see, let's turn back on the music. All right. I need to adjust the font still. Melee only, ranged only, one-punch bosses, no upgrades, that kind of thing. Those would all be quite interesting. The one-punch bosses one, that's got me... how would that even work? Would that even be possible? I'll be curious as... I'd be curious how possible that would or wouldn't be. I guess it really depends on what the specials are and how far you can buff and how far you can increase the damage of certain weapons. But for melee only and ranged only, yeah, those would be very interesting challenge runs. No upgrades. That would definitely be very interesting. Definitely a worthy challenge. You're currently doing 83 damage for a non-crit melee. And that does sound like a lot for the start of the game. And if that's on the fist, that's probably even, you know, that's probably even a good chunk even for like the mid-game, or at least the early mid-game. But I think by end game, that might not be doing as much work as one might think. But then again, the fists do have a fast attack speed, so it kind of balances out. I'll be very curious, chat, for anyone who speedruns Heartwell when it's fully completed, is just kind of what the quote-unquote optimal route is. And that's just because of the way the game's designed to have so many, with its branching paths. I'll be curious to see like will people first of all which exit for the tutorial dungeon ends up being optimal, which specific bosses ends up being optimal. You're all in damage. You didn't punch 3 times before needing to wait for stamina. Fair enough. So it's like, well, you've done all in on damage. Stamina still hasn't done much though. So you can punch hard, but maybe not a lot of times. And also once I finish adjusting, once I finish buffing stamina so that it increases stamina regen rate, that'll definitely probably change the calculus for at least a couple of players in terms of how they want to make their builds, because stamina regen rate in Souls games is like one of the most important things, and there's just so many areas where it's helpful. So there could be people who genuinely just like, you know what, I'm just gonna dump all my high points into agility so that way I can just have an absurd stamina regen rate and just bounce all around the map. Because why not? It's like, I may not hit hard, but if I never get hit, I can just keep moving forward. That kind of thing. Because I think it was the Arch guy. He did a build that I hadn't quite seen anyone else do up to that point, and that was essentially leveling up fists specifically for gifted hands, and leveling up a decent amount in, I think the stat was endurance, so that way they could get a much faster ammo regen rate and have a lot of ammo to just essentially spam rocks because they have such a low ammo cost. It's definitely a very interesting strat, very effective, very agile as well. Alright. Last but certainly not least, we need to adjust this one to a number. We'll edit that. 7, 9. 7, 9. Let's see here, 7, 9. I wonder what we would call basically a no upgrades run. Would that just be like saying, would we just call that like factory 0 or something, where it's like you're essentially just whatever weapons you get, you have to use them as they are, you can't like change them or anything? Dorothy unmanifested. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The unmanifest run. Oh, actually, wait. Yeah, it just gave me a great idea for a challenge run. It's like the no manifest run. So in other words, you can't open the manifest. Imagine how nuts that would be. Because it's not, because you have to understand, that isn't just a no upgrades run. That is literally no other weapons other than the starting weapons run. Because you can't even change weapons, exactly. Amazing. It's like, I have the manifest, I'm just gonna carry it, I'm not gonna use it. Like, it's like, who needs to read this thing? It's like, I'll hold on to it, and that's all I'll do. That just makes me think of like the no talking run that I'm seeing Yamfa do in like Dark Souls 2. It just so overcomplicates everything. It's like there's so many simple things like, oh, I'll get spells. Oh wait, I can't use any of the shops now. I can't even level up now because you need the maiden to level up. What do we do? Cassandra never said I could open it. What if it's not done yet? Oh no! That's amazing. Alright. Trying to think, what other silly challenges should there be? What would be a really brutal run? Would it be possible? I don't think it would be possible. Imagine if... Imagine if while you're in combat, so not like when you're platforming around, but just when you're in combat. Imagine if you weren't allowed to use the WASDTs. So in other words, like you couldn't walk, like a truly no walking challenge run. Now, granted, I don't think it would be fully possible. Yeah. Well, I mean, you actually can pacifist your way out of the tutorial. It is possible to leave the tutorial without defeating a single enemy. It's very difficult, but it is possible. But to beat the game without defeating an enemy, well, obviously not. It's not that kind of a game. But for like a no walking run, the thing is like, it wouldn't be possible if it's like truly you cannot use WASD ever, because there would obviously be some platforming that you just never be able to do. And there's plenty of platforming to be had. But besides the platforming segments, like, especially if it was just like a no walking for boss fights, for example, I think that'd be really interesting, because technically you can change the way you're looking with, you know, ranged attacks, and you can get horizontal movement from dashing. So it would definitely really change up how the boss fights work. Now, would it be possible? I mean, probably, but very, very, very difficult. But I think it'd definitely be interesting. Oh, whoops, wrong number. Wrong number. Okay. Another challenge I can think of that would be more on like the... I just don't want to be as difficult as the other ones, but it would be like, you have to defeat every single enemy before you can proceed. So in other words, like I would describe it as the clear dungeon challenge. So essentially, if you want to fight an area boss, you actually have to defeat every single enemy in that dungeon before you even attempt the boss. And if there's even one enemy left, you're not allowed to fight the boss, sort of thing. Like, it would be a really tedious challenge. But you'd also get tons of XP, so I guess it would all even out at least a little bit. Exactly. If you defeat everyone and don't save, they won't respawn. True. Until you get destroyed, in which case they will respawn. So, to do all that work for this, like, one attempt against the boss. The Scorched Earth Challenge. Or just Scorched Surface Challenge. The Scorched Elephoptry Challenge. I'd be very curious to see people do like a no healing charge challenge. It would definitely change up the game. Or how about just a no jumping challenge in combat? Like, obviously you still need to jump for platforming and stuff, but just imagine if you couldn't jump in combat. That would definitely make things a lot harder. Holy Hands would carry that. Holy Hands would probably help a lot, but I don't know if it would necessarily carry it because of the low damage per hit of the fists. I mean, unless you just level up to level 100, by that case, any weapon at that point would probably be pretty strong. It's like, you're on the right mindset though, Jay. Like, to make that work, you would definitely need something that inflicts light damage, because without it, you would have no way to get health back. But I guess, you know, early game, fists are the only things that offer that, because a lot of the weapons that would inflict light damage are, like, late game items for the most part, so we're either late game items or items that require a lot of effort to get. So that'd definitely be something, though. And then, of course, there's the classic challenge where it's just like beat the game while only using a certain weapon. So basically, do the bare minimum to get said weapon, and then use only that weapon for the rest of the game. Those are always fun challenges in my eyes. So I like to do my bow only challenges, as in the Souls games, for example. Alright, well, I think we've got all the new counters in the right spot. Let's just take a look. Alright, that counter looks good. Let's head on downstairs. That counter looks good. Let's go further below. Yep, counter looks good. Cool. Okay. So, I believe that means so one more action is done. The good old green test. Alright. Of course, now chat, that leaves the next item on the to-do list being the actual text blur objects adjustments. And those will definitely take some time. Let's make some markings here, chat. Alright, so Jay, I'm not sure if I've asked you this before, but given what you know so far about the different exits in Heartwell, which one intrigues you the most and why? Given what Gideone has said about the different areas, or at least the different areas outside of Heartwell. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay, let's start with the display strength and the central well. You say they're all interesting, but you find the top one most interesting, mostly because of its relative difficulty to reach. Interesting about that. All right. I guess it's just because it takes, you have to go through, you really have to explore a good chunk of Bardoff Well to even reach the top one, so that being the Polster Highlands. The irony is that the way I've designed the game, Polster Highlands is supposed to be the, I guess, middle of the road in terms of difficulty, at least of the three areas compared to each other. But I guess the mere fact that you have to go through so much dungeon to reach it is definitely adds a level of intrigue to it. Yeah, I mean, I guess another counterpoint to all this is that the path behind the wooden barricade. I mean, that wooden barricade's the amount of force needed to break it is probably going to need to be increased as a, in tandem with the increase in its speed, in its speed rates to kind of make it make sense. I'm not sure what value I'll have to put that to, but it'll all depend on just what the expected level is for someone who's attacking most of the enemies in Bardoff Well. I guess in a way that makes the area at the top of Bardoff Well kind of similar in a sense to the I think it was called the gutter in Dark Souls 2. And I don't mean in terms of stats, because the gutter is like a dark and druid cavern with lots of wooden constructions coming out of the abyss. That's nothing like the Polster Highlands. I mean more so in terms of when you enter Majula for the first time in Dark Souls 2. 104 damage, triple digits, nice. Now that's a lot of damage, especially if it's fists. Like if that's on fists, like that's an absurd amount of damage for fists, especially in the tutorial dungeon. But what I was saying is, okay, that is a lot of damage for fists. But what I was saying is in Majula and Dark Souls 2, you have that giant hole in the center of Majula. And when you look down that hole, you see a bunch of like wooden platforms, but they are like very far down there. 22 levels, all in strength. I see Dorothy is getting swole. And what's so fascinating about that is that that's actually a pathway to like a completely separate area from the first two quote-unquote tutorial areas you normally go to. Those being the Forest of the Fallen Giants and Hyde's Tower of Flame. But in order to even get to the gutter, you essentially either one need to have enough health to survive the fall in order to reach the gutter, or two, you need to find a merchant to provide a ladder to let you safely get down there. Or three, you need to buy the cat brain from a shop and then still get enough health to survive the fall. So there's a bunch of different options to get to the gutter. But the point still stands is the fact that it takes a bit more effort to get makes it relatively intriguing. And speedrunners actually use the gutter. It's like fairly critical to their speedrun strats because they need to use the gutter in order to reach the boss in the gutter and fight it multiple times to allow them to bypass a certain door. All right, what was I doing? Oh yes, must bring over the Tet Splitter object. And on over to our opening cutscene. Grab our display string. And I'll just say, chat, this so the process for actually getting all the text at is a bit on the more extensive side. What it involves essentially going here, looking for our strained objects. In this case, display strings over here. We'll bring our text blur object way over there. And then what I've been doing, chat, off stream is basically just having to go line by line, making adjustments so the text blur object can take the place of the display string object. And it's unfortunately not a one-to-one comparison either, so sometimes I've had to make certain adjustments to code to actually make it work correctly. But the end result is having our own custom fonts that look good even when we're all zoomed in. So definitely worth it, just needs adjustments. So what I do is first I bring that over, then I click on the display string object to essentially highlight anywhere that has text. So there's a lot of old copy text here, which we don't need to edit. What we do is edit the stuff that's unhighlighted like that. And we will start jumping right into that after I take a short break. So don't worry, guys. I will be right back. Alright, chat, welcome back everyone. Copper Nicholson asks, is the stream over? Not quite yet, we're still doing some more, eh? Also, Jay, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub, I really do appreciate it. Jay asks, is there a stat/level cap? Great question. So actually, there is. So, the level cap, let's pull up the central well here. So the level cap for any particular weapon is level 100, and that should make sense because if you look at how the stat points are distributed, 20 points in base damage, 20 points in precision or finesse, 20 points in stamina or ammo reduction, 20 points in miscellaneous, and of course 20 points across the 4 different specials. That's level 100. Now as for player stats, excuse me, for the player stats, the level cap is obviously 500, and that's just 100 in each stat. Now, as for everything else, there will obviously be caps in the sense that there's only so many items to collect in the game. So, the short answer is yes, there is a stat and level cap. It is quite high, though. You know, level 100 for each of the 60 different weapons, as well as level 500 for the player. So, that's where the cap stands there. Now, in terms of expectations for like just relative power scaling in the game, like at least at the current moment, my thought is that by the time the player reaches the final boss of the game, they should have at least one melee weapon and one ranged weapon that is They should have at least one melee and one ranged weapon that is maybe not quite at the cap, but probably close to somewhere around the 80 to 90s. That's the initial thought right now, anyway. And definitely a decently high player level. Whereas obviously in the tutorial dungeon, the expectation for fighting Skull Splitter or Matt Smith is, at least when I made it at first, it was level 5 for the weapons, level 6 for the player. But it's probably going to be a bit higher once I increase the spear rate for the enemies in Bardock Well. Alright, chat. So the very first thing I do whenever I need to make edits on things like this is I copy and paste the existing things and deactivate the line, so that way if I mess up a line of code, I can always revert it. So doing stuff like this for our display string. So now scroll on through. We see that, we copy pasta, we deactivate. We see that, we copy pasta, we deactivate. So that, copy pasta, deactivate. All right. Copy pasta, deactivate. There's so many. That's okay, it's all part of it. We're gonna message as Emily. Sombro's magic beings weakening, superior, and eventually he collapses and falls apart into these individual components, returning to their old selves. Sludge initially thinks that Spike used a spell of his own to counter Sombra's magic, but the dragon admits that it was nothing quite so flashy, just a simple matter of applying his knowledge to a problem. Grimlock tells his friend that this is what made Spike an incredible warrior, and proudly denounces is that from this point forward, Spike is an honorary Dinobot. Whatever that means. Alright. Deactivate. Activate that. So many lore bits, so little time. Yes, the alternate lore bits. So, oh, what's that? That Governor Nicholson says you can't wait to have more plots, synopsis from the Team Fortress 2 Wiki NetSuite. I see. Well, I enjoy Team Fortress 2. It's a very fun game. Very silly game, but a very fun game. Not TF2. Oh, you mean the OG Transformer? Sorry, the OG Team Fortress. All right. Well, I mean, the OG Team Fortress was actually just a mod for, I think it was Quake, I want to see. Oh, you mean Transformers. Okay, I see. So, there was a Team Fortress 1, but bear in mind, Team Fortress 1 was not a standalone game. It was, I think, the most popular mod for, like, Quake 2 or 3 or something like that. And Valve essentially approached the modders and essentially offered, all right, make this a standalone game. And that eventually resulted in Team Fortress 2. Is TF2 running more? Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's going quite strong. Like, despite Valve's many attempts to dissuade things. No, Overwatch is a different company, Copper Nicholson. Valve makes Team Fortress 2. Overwatch is made by Blizzard. I mean, Team Fortress 2 was Overwatch before Overwatch was even a thing. It's still a lot of fun. There's still a dedicated community to it. It's still free to play. Alright, but now have we done it? I have not talked Nicholson. Alright, now that we have done that, now we go through the process of adjusting and adding things. So first, go to the opening cutscene. Let's see if we can find ourselves. Aha, found it. Control C. And basically, chat, most of my free time, well, most of the time that I've been spending on Heartwell outside of streams has been doing stuff like this, where I'm making specific adjustments to specific lines of code to do stuff like that. To do stuff like that. In order to have the test player take the place of what used to be the display string. Speaking of which, to the very top we go. Excuse me. Whee! Look at that. Alright. Turn the opening cutscene as well. Yes. Okay. Alrighty, so Alright, so we need the length code. Grab that. Head back over. Take a look at that line of code. Storage strain, display strain. Okay, that needs adjustment. Well, I look forward to spending time with you guys and enjoying a show. Now we got here, change multiple text. Yeah, so essentially a lot of the edits to implement the new text, the text blur objects have been doing stuff like this, so essentially trying to find ways to replace the display text with lines of code like that. All right, looks good. Now we keep going. There has to be difference. Just like that. Let me adjust the individual line. Display string. Ah, that line. All right, so I know I have a line like that here somewhere. Aha, there it is. So if those are wondering, Antomicx, what the heck is this line of code? So this line of code, chat, is what gives you the essentially the old video game letter by letter effect whenever dialogue is being displayed. It's this line of code right here. Don't ask me how it works. I don't know exactly how it works. I just know that it works. Well, actually, I could probably try and dissect it. It's just when I first implemented, I didn't quite know how it works. Now I've used it for a while. The best way I can describe it is you are essentially constantly changing the text in this text object to be what the current length of the text splitter is +1 and trying to match it to the storage string. So basically a separate string that has the full text displayed that's off screen. So you start at 0, then you add 1, so that's 1 letter, then you add 1, so it's 2 letters, and so on and so forth until you're matching the string. And that's how you get the effect. Because it happens in a specified interval here, in this case every 300ths of a second. Favorite Team Fortress 2 class? Great question. This should come as no surprise, Engineer. The sentry gun is really powerful. I tend to have a more defensive playstyle in FPSs. And the shotguns are very good. The wrench is fun. And not only that, there's a lot you can do with the Engineer. Jay asks, how does enemy damage resistance work? So enemy damage resistance is fairly similar to the Souls games. Well, I say fairly similar, but I know Elden Ring and Dark Souls, their damage resistance calculations are kind of complicated. So in general, the way damage resistance works for enemies is they have a percentage of damage negation. So what that would mean, for example, let's find ourselves a rattlesnake. So a rattlesnake has 0 damage negations across the board because it's, you know, the most basic enemy. But essentially, I would give a value that represents between 0 and 100% resistance. So a 0% resistance means if I have an attack that's supposed to deal 100 damage, let's say it's supposed to deal 100 physical damage, and the enemy has 0% physical resistance, they will take 100 damage. Now let's say the enemy has 10% physical resistance. My attack that should be doing 100 damage instead inflicts 90 damage. Now let's say the enemy has like 90% physical resistance. Well, now my physical damage attack that was supposed to deal 100 damage now only deals 10 damage. Does that make sense, Jay? So essentially there's a percentage effect that determines that. Now, the one caveat to that is the fact that fault line exists. So the fault line status effect reduces the damage resistances that an enemy has. So let's see if I can find the formula, because this is kind of complicated, but literally in the formula there's a check for what the fault line buildup is on that particular enemy. So like, even though, let's say, an enemy's damage resistance or physical is supposed to be 50%, but they have a certain amount of fault line buildup, well, then their actual resistance there will be lowered. So that is something to consider with damage resistance, just because an enemy has... so would Fists ignores 50% damage resistance minus 50 or divide the resistance by 2? Good question. I'd need to double check how that one works. Let's see here. I'm going to have to double check how I programmed that. That's a good question, Jay. The way it should work is that it's supposed to essentially divide their negations by 2. So like, for example, if an enemy had 20% damage resistance to something, they would instead have 10% damage resistance, but I'm going to have to double check that. Pesto, Worcestershire. I mean, I would say, like, the manifest is not edible. It's a... Why would you try to eat it? You consume a dictionary every day and grow your vocabulary. That's pretty good. Okay. All right, I'll give you that one. That's a good joke. None, because the manifest is not food. Jay asks, the manifest can create at least temporarily matter, so if it was damaged, could it repair itself? Great question. So I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, what does one define as repair? So let's take a boat as an example. Let's say I have a boat, and my boat is going through a river, and the boat manages to hit some rocks. So now there's some holes in the boat's hull. Now, inside the boat, I'm carrying a certain amount of materials that I can use to repair the boat. All right, so let's say at the start of my run, I have, I don't know, let's say 100 pounds of repair materials, and torn page, some scratches. So in this case, for this first damage, I need to use 10 pounds of my repair stuff. All right, so now the boat's fully functional, but I only have 90% of what my repair materials are. And, you know, as I keep going, I get more damage, things like that. Eventually, I've repaired my boat, and my boat's still 100% functional, but now I'm completely out of repair materials, since they've all been used to help repair the boat. So that the next time I take damage, now I don't have anything left to repair it with. The manifest functions in much the same way. So because of the way material bandwidth works, think of it like you have a certain amount of it, and you could, in theory, use it to patch up the manifest. But at a certain point, you would run out of material bandwidth and no longer be able to do that. So you could tear out a page and loosen Matt's ammo. From a metaphorical stance, obviously from a gameplay stance, the whole reason ammo can even regenerate, quote unquote, is because of the fact that the ammo that you're spending disintegrates after it has inflicted its damage and is able to return to the manifest. That's where the regen comes from. So in that case, matter is not being created or destroyed, it is simply changing form at a rapid rate. But on the other hand, think of things like think of things where, like, if you were to say, let's say you scratch up the manifest a bit and you need to use some material bandwidth to repair it. Well, okay, well now that material bandwidth can't be used for other things. So it's kind of like, again, the repairing boat situation. On the other hand, to use the boat analogy again, let's say the boat fires, I don't know, let's say the boat fires giant ballistas, all right? They're these huge spears, right? You launch them out off of the boat, obviously the spears are gone. Except, let's say the spears had a rope attached to them, so that once they hit their target, you can kind of pull them back. That's kind of what the manifest does when you're using any kind of ranged weapon, is you're manifesting the ammo long enough for it to inflict the damage against the thing, or to miss completely, and then you're dematerializing it to get that ammo back, so to speak, or at least the material bandwidth back. Copper Nicholson asks, well, if you add pages to the manifest? So the manifest is not a normal book. The way it was designed, the whole concept of adding pages would be difficult, to say the least. Use a stapler now. Oh, wait, let's let that. Have I seen Black Clover? Great question. No, I have not. Is it a show you'll recommend, Jay? If so, what kind of genre is it? Because I've heard of the title, but I've never actually seen it. Can I find myself a lore bit? Ha! Yeah. Okay. It's a semi-shonen anime. The main character has a grimoire. He pulls swords out. Oh, interesting. Okay, I see why you're bringing it up. I see. He has this book they pull swords out of. Okay, sounds familiar. That's interesting. But I'm guessing when you say it's a grimoire, that sounds more like magical based, whereas the manifest is more sci-fi based. But I just great minds think alike then. Very magic-based show. Ah, gotcha. Whereas Heartwell's very much a much more sci-fi based thing, even if it very much presents itself as having fantasy elements. It's definitely meant to be more sci-fi. Much like Shining Force. The Shine Force is based on the premise that magic is just technology that's misunderstood. You just let them out and it's just pulling a weapon out of a book like a sheath. Oh, I agree. It's a cool concept, and not just a weapon, just like almost anything. It's like you have like this ability to create things. It's like I will now pull this item from my bag of tricks, basically. That's what makes a bag of holding so interesting in like Dungeons and Dragons. It's the idea that you're just carrying so many different items. Pulls her out, but magic. Very good. Magic. Magic tats is what? What would that even be? Alright. Well, next thing to do is to check. Every time you cast a spell, you must fill out a form. That sounds horrible. Oh no. So many lines, so little time. I do. There we go. Okay, so play paragraph 12. Okay, there it is. Okay. Everything else appears. Yep. Okay. All right. Objects invisible. So chat, fun facts, one of the nice quality of life updates that happened in the past couple of patches for Fusion 2.5 is the negations for things that make logical sense to help save time. So rather than having to create a whole new line of code here, if I want to change make invisible to reappear, I just click negate and boom. Because it's the opposite, it does that. Very nice quality of life change that Clickteam implemented. Similarly, I just copy this on over and say it's visible is invisible, so just negate that. All right. Alright, so that's going to be the test box controls for lower bits. So many lines of code, chat. This will definitely take quite a bit of editing to get through, but it's all part of the process. Alright, there we go. Slowly but surely making progress. Oh, I'll be wrapping up in a couple of minutes. I mean, if you need to drive home, then by all means drive home. You don't need to stop on my behalf. It's I'll just be making a couple more adjustments here and then and wrapping things up. Display string to string to stored string. So I think I have something like this in the other frame. Too large. Yeah. There it is. Oh, where was that? 330. Okay. Alright. I think maybe bits and pieces, but not very much, Copper Nicholson. Out nice touching stream for a while, same. Alright, thank you both so much for dropping by. I hope you all have a great rest of your week and an amazing weekend. I'll probably wrap things up here as well, just because it is definitely getting a bit later. I think we've made some good progress tonight. So we've got the text all squared away for at least the healing charges, and now we're just working on dialogue stuff. So, if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for raid, but if you're watching YouTube and like what you saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's free to subscribe on YouTube, but it'll always change your mind later. It's a great way to show support. If you're watching YouTube, have an amazing night.